This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gido. You watch, it's Tuesday, July 2nd. This is Africa 54. Sudanese pro-democracy protesters intensifies the pressure on the country's military leaders to transition power to a civilian administration. Africa 54 takes a closer look at the first woman to lead Ethiopia's Supreme Court. And midwifery students learn how to use cutting-edge technology to bring life into the world. The situation in Sudan is tense after at least 11 people were killed in the latest mass protests as pro-democracy groups continue their aggressive demands for a swift transition to civilian rule in the East African country. The Forces for Declaration of Freedom and Change, the organization representing the demonstrators' demand for civilian rule, says at least 300 people had been wounded in the latest clash with security forces. One opposition official says peaceful protests in Khartoum and many other cities across Sudan underscores the strong desire of the Sudanese people for a civilian-led transition.
It has been 3 months since the fall of ousted longtime autocrat Omar al-Bashir. The handover of power to civilians has not yet happened yet, and the harassment of political seminars, press conferences, and activist meetings, and all this harassment shows they are not taking the handover of power to civilians seriously.
Is condemning the violence of the Sudanese security forces against civilians. Sudan has been run by the military council since longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir was ousted on April 11th. The African Union and several Western countries are urging the military to transfer authority to civilian rule.
The rallies that took place in Chicago and other cities were in support of mass demonstrations in Sudan on Sunday, which opposition leaders called a Millions March. Amin al-Said, a Sudanese student who has lived in the U.S. for 19 years, helped organize the Chicago protest.
We're standing with our brothers and sisters in Sudan right now who are gathering for a million-man march to once again stand up against an oppressive and brutal military regime that's been in power for over 30 years. We want the world to know that what's happening in Sudan cannot go unnoticed. People are dying. People are giving up their lives for basic human rights and basic freedoms.
Sunday marked the 30-year anniversary of a military coup in Sudan that ended democratic rule and brought dictator Omar al-Bashir to power. Bashir's regime was accused of corruption and human rights abuses, including an alleged genocide in the country's Darfur region. Bashir's military ousted him in April after mass protests, but the generals refused to hand power to a civilian government. In Chicago, there were calls for the global community to help Sudan's protesters achieve their demands.
We're seeing exactly what happened in Darfur is happening now in Khartoum and for the entire country, where people are getting murdered, raped, and there's no justice. So all we're trying to do is bring attention to that, and we're hoping that we'll have more people supporting us. The international community, whether it's the UN, the US, the EU, really any attention that we can get so we can help the people of Sudan is what we're looking for.
International support for the Sudan demonstrations has been organized online with the hashtag #BlueForSudan, encouraging people to wear blue to show solidarity with Sudan's protesters. In Chicago, some non-Sudanese people joined the rally.
People are being shot down, and it's horrible. And one person, one email, one phone call can do anything. Call your senators, email your senators, follow the hashtags on all of social media, anything blue for Sudan.
With support growing around the world, efforts to return Sudan to civilian rule are far from over. Jason Patinkin for VOA News, Chicago.
At least 50 people in Nigeria were killed Monday when fuel from a crashed tanker ignited into a blaze in central Benue State, according to a spokesman for the governor. Residents were scooping and siphoning oil when it caught fire. Many others were badly injured and taken to a local hospital. Last October, 60 people were killed when a spill at an oil pipeline in the southeast of the country caught fire. Now, the battle for Tripoli may have hit a turning point with the capture of a key town, but with the country's future at stake, fighting between the warring parties is likely to escalate. VOA's Heather Murdoch reports from Libya.
Last week, forces loyal to Libya's internationally backed Western government recaptured the town of Garian in the northwestern part of the country, saying they had essentially cut their enemy's supply lines 3 months into the battle for Libya's capital, Tripoli. In early April, the town was taken by forces loyal to the de facto leader in the east, Khalifa Haftar, who vowed to take the city of Tripoli by force and launched attacks from Garian. Libya has been ruled by 2 separate governments for roughly 5 years. The internationally recognized government in the west is known as the Government of National Accord and is based in Tripoli. Leading the Libyan National Army in the east is Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, who says he wants to unify the country. Soldiers and residents in Tripoli warn that a Haftar victory could return the country to a one-man dictatorship. But if Haftar's forces are pushed back, they say, Libya can continue its attempt to unite through diplomacy and elections. Both sides agree that to move forward, Libya must unite its governments.
In regards to military institutions, national security, and immigration matters, we need to be centralized. But in regards to public services and local security, we need to be decentralized.
More than 650 people have been killed and 94,000 have been displaced by this war. Haftar's military has vowed to retaliate against Tripoli and its international allies. Reporting from Garian in Libya, I'm Heather Murdoch, VOA News.
Now, Algerian Parliament President Mouad Bouchareb stepped down Tuesday, according to Enahar Television. A parliamentary source, Bouchareb quit after prolonged demands for his removal by protesters who saw him as a pillar of the ruling elite. His resignation comes just 3 months after longtime President Abdelaziz Bouteflika also resigned under pressure from sustained demonstrations seeking political reforms and an end to systematic corruption and cronyism. A parliamentary source says Bouchareb will be replaced by a caretaker before a new parliamentary president is named. Now, Ethiopia is facing security challenges following the killing of high-ranking officials. Amid mass arrests, the country will have to depend on its judicial system more than ever to move forward. At the helm of the judiciary is Miaza Ashenafi, the first woman to lead the country's Supreme Court. As part of his sweeping reforms, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made Miaza the president of the court to repair the image of the judicial system. She has built a career on advocating for women. VOA Salem Solomon has this profile.
For the first time in its modern history, Ethiopia's Supreme Court is being led by a woman. Miaza Ashenafi, a lawyer and a women's rights advocate, accepted the offer last November. Miaza has been a crusader against harmful practices that victimize women. One of her most famous cases involved a 14-year-old girl who was kidnapped by a man trying to force her into child marriage, a traditional practice in some parts of Ethiopia. The girl shot and killed her abductor, but was cleared of charges due to Miaza's work. The incident was dramatized in an award-winning film, Difret. In her extensive career as a lawyer, judge, legal advocate, and business leader, Miaza has focused on women's rights and economic empowerment.
For example, in Ethiopia, there is no law, independent law on violence against women. We just have few provisions in the criminal code. So going forward, I think we need to have a comprehensive law that addresses issues of violence against women and law.
Miaza also founded the Ethiopian Women's Lawyers Association, a group focusing on issues of sexual and intimate partner violence. She hopes to restore respect for the legal system in the eyes of all Ethiopians who sometimes view the court as biased or slow to respond. Miaza wants Ethiopians to view the court as able to hold all to account, including those in power. she believes she has an ally in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Ethiopia's young, reform-minded leader. Abiy highlighted the role the court could play in strengthening Ethiopia's civil society and spoke of his experience.
Everyone should get equal treatment in the face of the law. It should never be used as a tool for revenge. When we respect the rule of law, it should be in accordance to that.
Ma'aza hopes her understanding of Ethiopia's culture and people will be an asset in her position as she seeks solutions to seemingly intractable problems.
If under my leadership we manage to cement the independence of the judiciary in Ethiopia, this is not going to change the history of the last 40 years. This is going to change the history of the last 3,000 years of judicial administration in Ethiopia.
Salam Solomon, VOA News, Washington, D.C.
And now to the exciting Africa Cup of Nations in Cairo, where Africa 54 sports reporter Sunday Shomari is standing by. Good evening, Sunday. Today is the final day for round one, and Tanzania and Burundi are going home. What's their reaction?
Esther, it's the final day of the first round, and teams are getting ready to go home. Those who lost their games, such as Tanzania and Burundi from East Africa, they're packing up to go home after losing all their games. And I spoke to the captain of the Tanzanian team, Mbwana Samata. He was in a very somber mood, feeling sad. He said this was a learning moment. They will take this home, prepare, get back even stronger. But it depends how you feel. So many teams are ready. Second round is coming. Other people are excited, while others are not feeling very well. But DRC from East Africa have hopes, depending on what happens on the other games.
Yes, Sunday, Esther. Despite losing yesterday, Kenya still thinks it has a chance moving forward. Is this a far-fetched dream?
Esther, if you talk to Kenyans right now, they will tell you there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Because you know why? Because they're expecting other games. In these tournaments this year, we have more teams than others, 24 teams. So 16 teams have a chance to go next. And this is, they introduce what is known as best third team or third best loser. So another third team can have a chance in case something happens. So Kenyans are now praying for Ghana to make sure they win their game tonight. And as well, they're praying for the next round, where Mali will be playing tonight, for them to win as well. So when the two teams, Benin, if Benin doesn't do well, that is good for Kenya. That is why Kenyans are praying tonight for these games that are playing outgoing right now, so they can get the chance to be the best loser. That's what's going to happen, Esther, in case these games come that way.
So, Sunday, which teams should we be paying attention to in the second round?
Well, Esther, it depends who you ask. But according to the polls, according to what the analysts are saying right now, Morocco, or they call Morocco, is a very good team. You also have Algeria. They have proved to go with 9 points in their group. Very strong. Senegal, too, you saw how they did to Kenya. They are very good as well. On the same note, the host nation, Egypt, very strong with Mo Salah and Trezeguet. They are scary when they come to you, because right now even their defense has never conceded a goal, and that is a plus for a home team. So these teams will be really looked out on the coming stage as to the second round.
Well, Sunday, very briefly, what are the expectations in the groups E and F?
Well, expectations, Esther, are there. You could see the last Ghana team was doing their session, they call JAMA session. This was to boost morale in the team, because they have a very strong team to face, Benin, and also they have to win. So right now, we're expecting a very, very, very good game. As these games are going on right now, these teams are still playing.
Africa
as you see, they're playing it out.
Sunday Shomari,
so someone's going to win.
Live for us from Cairo, Egypt. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. We'll be right back.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. One of Google's so-called moonshots is trying to get its high-flying internet balloons off the ground in Kenya, where the tech giant hopes to deliver 4G cell phone service in its first-ever commercial test. Born in 2011, Loon is now collaborating with Telkom Kenya to bring services to remote mountain villagers in the coming months. The balloons face some practical issues, namely wind, which moves the balloons out of range, and the sun. UV rays mean the balloons have to be replaced every 6 months as the plastic deteriorates, but none of that is holding back the balloons from flying. Kenya's government just gave final regulatory approval for Loon to move ahead, and Indonesia issued preliminary approval for Loon to fly on over. Next up, the Los Angeles Police Department's Central Division Station had rats in filthy conditions. One officer even contracted typhoid fever. Recently, the department unveiled their newest weapon, a germ-fighting robot. The Light Strike is often used within hospitals and other government facilities. It cleans and decontaminates highly touched surfaces that are breeding grounds for bacterial infections by using a powerful UVC light. Healthy Soul is another machine helping fight disease. It sanitizes footwear via ultraviolet light as officers re-enter the building. And finally, are you in the mood for some ninja training? Head down to Tokyo's latest themed eatery, Ninja Cafe and Bar. The cafe offers what it calls the full ninja experience, where guests dress in traditional ninja costume and are taught some of the tricks of the ninja trade. The food and drinks are also ninja-themed, ranging from black ninja ginger ale, colored by adding bamboo charcoal to the drink, to ninja pasta and ninja curry, where the rice is shaped like a shuriken. The cafe is an evolution of another event the company puts on called the Ninja Tour, where visitors dress up and walk around Asakusa with a tour guide. And that's what's trending today.
It's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with information on a life-saving technique. Lino?
That's right, Esther. It's a technique that everybody can learn. And when a person's breathing stops, time is precious and every second counts, because permanent brain damage or death can happen quickly. If you know how to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR, you could save a life. CPR is an emergency life-saving technique that can be useful in many emergencies, including a heart attack or near drowning. To learn more, we visited the Washington, D.C. Fire Department's headquarters, where we also learned how to do a heart massage. Take a look. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure.
And CPR means something, actually. What does it mean?
Cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
So it is about getting oxygen through the heart and the lungs so that a person's body will stay alive during any episode of cardiac event that they may have.
Why is it important for everyone to know how to do CPR?
Because you never know when you're going to encounter someone who experiences sudden cardiac arrest. And so it's a very, again, simple, easy skill to learn that you can use whenever.
I'm very excited to learn, but before we do that, I think that there's a little more that we wanted to understand because it looks so complex. Yes, you say everybody can do it, right? So talk to us about who's a good candidate to receive CPR and who's not.
So anyone who's unconscious or not responding to basic stimuli of, hey, are you okay, are a candidate for CPR. For the normal lay person, the citizen walking down the street, if you tap somebody, you don't get a response, that they're a candidate for CPR.
Okay, so let's look at the steps.
Okay.
So let's say I come, I see somebody who's unconscious. What do I do first?
The first thing you want to do is check the scene, check your environment where this person is laying. You don't want to put yourself in danger, okay, become a victim also. So you look around, make sure that you're not going to get electrocuted, hit by a car, or gnawed by animals. Because CPR is always done on the floor, you'll always be on your knees. If you walk into your home and there's someone unconscious on a bed, on a couch, on a chair, a lounge boy, you want to bring them to the floor, all right? Next thing you do is you check the patient. You're going to tap the shoulder hard, all right? And call out, sir, are you okay? Can you hear me? You want to startle them. You want them to react to your tapping and to your yelling. If they do not move and they don't moan or groan or make any kind of grimace on their face, you want to call 911, put it on speaker, and put it down right next to you. While you're waiting, you're going to bare the chest. You're going to lift up the shirt, pop the shirt open, whatever you need to do to have a completely bare chest.
Okay.
If it's a female, of course, her bra is going to go up. What you're looking for is the sternum. The sternum is the breastbone that holds the ribs, but in the lower half of the sternum is the heart, which is about the size of your fist. Okay? That heart's going to be there. You're going to take the ball of your dominant hand and you're going to lay it on top of where the heart is.
Okay, so I'm going to try as you explained.
Please. This is how we measure. You take your 4 fingers from where the top of the sternum, and then the last 4 fingers, that's where your hand is going to go. The placement of your hand is the ball of your palm. Right on top.
Okay.
Right there, next to your 4 fingers. Very good. You're going to take your other fingers and readjust and reinforce them.
Okay.
There you go. Locking your elbows means making them stiff.
Okay.
All right? Okay. And you're going to be as close as you can to the patient because you want to use your whole torso weight to come down, all the way down, as far as you can go, into the patient's chest. All right? Staying alive, staying alive. You have to do it fast. Staying alive, very good. Staying alive. When the firemen come and take over, okay, that's when you can stop CPR. Or if the patient decides that he wakes up and he starts to cough and moan and groan, you turn him over in a recovery position, and in case they vomit away from you. And you tell them, sir, you fell. We have an ambulance on the way. Don't move.
So you speak to the person to make sure that they're...
Right, you keep them calm.
Okay.
That way they know that they're on the ground and that you have help coming.
Great.
And that's it.
Some important information there. And according to the American Heart Association, there are 2 commonly known versions of CPR for healthcare providers and those trained. The conventional CPR using chest compressions and mouth-to-mouth breathing. For the general public or bystanders who witness an adult suddenly collapse, it is compression-only CPR and hands-on only CPR. Now, we turn to technology. Augmented reality technology, or AR, has been around for a few years. Just ask anyone who ever played the Pokemon Go game on a cell phone. But at a university in London, augmented reality is literally taking on a new life. Here is VOA's Arash Arabasadi.
Midwives bring new life into the world, and these midwifery students at London's Middlesex University are learning a new way to do this.
So this is when you'd speak to your mom, and you would be telling her to push, push, push. She's got a contraction, okay?
Sarah Chitongo is the educator in this high-tech classroom. Her students use goggles equipped with augmented reality, or AR, so trainee midwives can experience a simulated birth.
It allows you to see a visual picture of the actual
anatomy itself, which is raised out of the normal body, and you can step in, walk around, and have an internal view.
AR is a digital overlay atop something real. In this case, a pregnancy atop a mannequin.
This actually allows you to engage that type of learner that is more visual rather than paper-based, and it just gives them a lot more experience and hands-on to actually move around and interact with their surroundings.
The training helps prepare students for all that could go wrong during childbirth, including handling complications because of genetic predispositions.
We do know Black Asian women have got more cardiovascular risks, diabetes. However, that does not give an excuse for somebody to die because of that. And those are some of the solutions which this technology can provide in trying to address a very vulnerable population.
Educators say students' exposure to AR makes them more comfortable using it in the classroom.
It's about giving the students the ability to engage with tools and things they have been used to and accustomed to, but within a learning space, a serious learning space, so that they get a better understanding of it.
Chitongo says it took her nearly a decade of midwifing before she even saw a breech delivery. She says with AR technology in the classroom, students can better manage what happens in the real world and possibly even save a life. Arash Erbasadi, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Esther?
Now, Leno, a very interesting report there at the fire department in D.C. Can you simply, put in the layman's language about the CPR so that people can understand how this important technique can save lives?
Well, CPR is a very important technique, as you mentioned. It can save lives. And what the people at the D.C. Fire Department explain is the fact that it is critical for everyone who has an opportunity to learn to do so. And the day we went to visit them, they were out in the community, and this is something that they do very often. They go to the community, and just people that are walking by can stop at the desk and learn these techniques. So as you saw in the video, it was a summary of the different steps. But the summary was very comprehensive because it's not much more complicated than that. It's very simple. You learn those techniques, and it can really save lives. Imagine a single mother at home with a child or an adult who is having a heart attack. You can do something before the emergency department get there, the fire department. So it's really important for everyone who can to learn these techniques.
And sometimes you don't even have that time to get to call the emergency services. So very good information there, Leno. I really like it, and I hope our viewers will use that kind of technique to save lives as well. Thanks, Leno, for joining us today on our Health Report. Join Leno Moudou every Tuesday right here on Africa 54 for Health Reports. And that's our show for today. Watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.